My name is Chelsea DeCole. I'm a certified nutritional practitioner and educator with Smart Solutions. So I use my education to really help people like yourselves understand more about what's going on in your bodies and how you can use nutrition and supplements as a tool. When I'm not working with Smart Solutions, I do have my own nutrition practice, and I spend a lot of time outdoors with my sweet 1.5-year-old dog and with my husband. Now, before I get started, I want to do a land acknowledgement. So Smart Solutions gratefully acknowledges that our workplace lies on the unceded territories of the First Nation, Inuit, and Métis Nations. Through our dispersed team, Smart Solution conducts its work on the traditional territories of many Indigenous peoples that are across our country and, in fact, also around the world. We respectfully honor all people, cultures, and traditions, and I also personally would like to acknowledge the traditional lands that I reside on here in the Okanagan, the Silk people. And I would encourage you to get to know whose land you are residing on in your area. Before we get going, there's a couple of little housekeeping things that I'll just mention. We are recording this webinar, so I will make sure that this gets passed off to Healthy Planet, and they will be sharing this as a available for rewatch on their platform. So stay tuned for more information on that. And as we go through this presentation, please note, I am a nutritionist, but I can't give out medical advice. And I would recommend that if you have any medical related questions that you speak with your healthcare practitioner about those. We'll do our very best to answer questions and help direct you to sources of information for some things that might come up throughout the presentation. Feel free to put your questions into the Q&A. I've got some time at the end, so I will get to those questions. We may have a panelist on who might be able to field some questions throughout, but if not, I will answer as many questions as possible. Now, with that, why don't we get started? So hormone health is something that can be very confusing. There are a lot of questions that we ask ourselves on a daily basis about how we're feeling and what's going on. Should I be eating this? Am I feeling stressed? Why am I feeling stressed? Why is my period not when it should be? Why do I have cramps every single month? What supplements should I be taking? We literally have 1,000 different questions going through our mind. And we're often overloaded with information. So the information we're taking in from webinars like this, from social media, just from searching online. There is a lot of information. We live in a world where every news platform and social media is covering the topic of health and wellness, and we can have so much information that it becomes impossible to make an informed decision about what our body truly needs to support its hormone health. So that's why you're here today. That's why I'm here today, and hopefully we can answer some of those questions for you. Now think about this, 11 seconds. Try explaining your hormonal stress or mental health concerns to a healthcare practitioner in just 11 seconds. This is about how much time we have to explain to our doctor how we're feeling. And if you're anything like me, energy levels, our mood, hormones, these can all change day to day. And it can be difficult to really narrow down to one or two things in a very short amount of time to explain to your practitioner what's going on. So navigating this space of hormones and stress and how it's all linked to our mood and how we feel may seem very complex, but it doesn't have to be as complex as it may seem. And even though we have a supportive medical system for the most part, it's set up to support us, there are still a lot of unanswered questions about different things that we experience day to day. And what I've certainly learned through my own health journey and becoming a nutritionist and working in this space is that it's a very multifaceted approach that we have to take. And we have to bear in mind that what works for one person like myself might not work for you. Is it your hormones? Is it aging? Is it stress? Is it something that's mental health focused? The key is really working with your healthcare practitioner and also from a holistic approach, understanding what's going on in your body. There isn't really a cookie cutter approach, as I'm sure you all can understand from your own health journeys. So we really have to take a step back, listen to the cues that our body are telling us, and then act accordingly so that we can really own our own health and get to where we want to be with that. So today we're spending the next hour talking about how we can control your health, take control of your health, and so you can become a better, healthier version of you. We're covering hormones and how they impact our overall health. We're going to look specifically at stress and how it has an impact on hormone dysfunction. We'll look at thyroid health and low thyroid symptoms, and then dig into a very talked about topic right now: period problems, perimenopause, and menopause concerns. So this presentation is really focused towards women and people who are menstruators. That doesn't mean that there aren't nuggets of information that men can take from this conversation, but just in terms of how this conversation is going to go, I'll be using the term women, but I want it to be more inclusive considering anybody who is a menstruator. Now, we're all at different hormone stages in our lives. So we all have different needs for our support. Where I'm at in my hormonal journey is going to be vastly different from where each of you are on yours. But whether it's our body trying to support its functioning in having regular periods, preparing for pregnancy, changes that our body goes through postpartum or during perimenopause, menopause, and even postmenopause. At all of these stages, we want to feel vibrant and energized. We want to show up for the people in our lives. And most importantly, we want to be able to show up for ourselves. So first, let's take a step back and get a little bit of an understanding about hormones, what they are and what they do in the body. So they're chemical messengers. They're sending these chemical messages from the glands where they're actually being produced through our bloodstream to different cells in tissues or organs throughout our body. And we have hormone receptors all through our body, from our head to our toes, that are receiving these important messages. These messages are controlling major body functions. So it can be primary needs like our hunger, to complex systems and functions like our emotions and reproduction. Our hormones have a very powerful effect on us and our energy levels. They really dictate how we feel and how we function. Our hormones are responsible for things like growth and development, right from infancy onwards, our metabolism, so how we continue to drive our body forward every single day, our sexual function, reproduction, and our mood. And there are a lot of different organs involved in all of this. So let's take a look at some of those important glands associated with our hormones. We've got our adrenal glands. These are sitting like a little hat on top of our kidneys, and they're producing cortisol, which is our stress hormone. The thyroid gland wraps around our windpipe or trachea, and this is controlling all of those main metabolic functions. The liver is supporting a lot of hormone-related functions. The liver has a huge job in our body. It can make cholesterol, which is needed for hormone production. It also helps to convert hormones into other types of hormones. And it's also really important for hormone detoxification. And then our ovaries. We know that this is where the most amount of our sex hormones are produced. So estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So each one individually has an important role in hormone function, and they each have their own individual functions, but they also have to work in harmony to create a hormone balance. So when there isn't harmony, that's when things start to become out of balance. So before we go any further, let's take a quick poll. You can just type this into the chat, whichever letter matches what your experience is. What do you see as the foundations for supporting hormone health? Is it nutrition and a healthy diet? Is it activity and exercise? Is it stress support, supporting your hormonal health? Or is it all of the above? I see a lot of people answering the answer that I was hoping everyone would say. It's E, all of the above. Absolutely. So we have to consider all of these aspects of our life and how we function in order to really see ourselves in an optimal place from a health perspective, especially our hormone health. So just like our home needs great structure for the walls, for the roof, and a solid foundation to support us, our hormone health needs the same. So there's those four pillars of hormone health. So it's the food we're putting into our body, also known as diet or nutrition, looking at stage-specific hormone support, stress support, and exercise. These are those main pillars to really see that optimal hormone health. So the way that we're supporting ourselves day to day will reflect how much support we need, especially in terms of supplementation. So we have to talk about stress first. Now, I know this is something that everyone experiences at some point in their lives, almost on the day-to-day basis. We certainly can't avoid it entirely, nor should we, but there are times when it can become too much or it can become really problematic for ourselves. But before we go any further, I want to know how stress makes you feel. Does it make you feel imbalanced or overwhelmed, tired and exhausted, like you're having some aches and pains? Does it make you feel a lot worse before it gets better? Or does it actually energize you? Because sometimes that can be the effect that it has. So I'm seeing a lot of different answers here. Some people have said all of them at different times. Some people just one thing, but a lot of people are saying overwhelmed, but we're really seeing a lot of different responses. And that again shows us that we are all different. What one person experiences and how they respond is going to be different than how somebody else experiences that same type of stress and what their response is going to be. It's so important to be able to tune into what your experience is, understand what you're feeling in order to then be able to do something about it. So when we talk stress and when we're thinking about this bigger picture of it, we have to consider looking at our adrenal glands where our stress hormone cortisol is being produced. So the adrenal is managing that stress response. It's that little hat-shaped gland that's sitting right on top of that kidney, and it's producing hormones that are helping to control our heart rate, our blood pressure, the way our body is using food, the levels of minerals in our blood, and a lot of other functions that are involved in our stress reactions. They're also the backup hormone system for our sex hormones. So we'll talk a little bit about that later once we get into the menopause conversation. The moment we believe we could be in danger, that stress response activates that body-wide change by stimulating the nervous system from our brain, and it cascades downwards in our body. Now, the degree of stress response alarm is directly proportional to the degree of perceived threat. So the more threatened you feel, the bigger the response is going to be. So believing that you're only in minor danger will produce a low degree of stress response that will result in some of those physical and psychological and emotional changes. But if you believe that you're in grave danger, it's going to produce a much higher degree of stress response and cause much bigger changes across the body. This also determines the length of recovery after that stress response has ended. So hopefully, if it's just a little bit of stress, you'll recover a lot more quickly within minutes or even a few moments. However, having that higher degree of stress response, it could take a lot longer to recover from that stressful event. And I'm sure some of those things that you've identified are feelings that you have, regardless of whether it's a smaller, less stressful thing or it's something where it's a lot more significant. But when does it actually become a problem? Because the stress response itself isn't necessarily always negative for us. If something stressful is happening, the body has to react quickly to protect it. Uh, and over time, this creates damage to our bodies. So stress can cause our blood pressure to skyrocket, our heart rate and our blood sugar to spike, as well as having inflammatory factors get released throughout our body. All of these actions can actually cause major disease issues when they are a prolonged chronic type of stress. Now, our body, when stressed, is in a sympathetic state or fight or flight mode, or flight or fight or freeze, as some people refer to it. So the body is not concerned with anything that's a long term issue. So it's not thinking about digestion, immune optimization, or even creating another human being. So it's just prioritizing getting yourself out of danger. So chronic stress can then impact a lot of things like digestion, immune function, and lead to a lot of other health issues. That's why stress is usually first talked about, and we have to address it first because it has such an impact on all those other areas of our well-being. Now, thinking about those stressful moments that you have experienced, it could be a recent change in position at work, maybe moving to a new home, daily stress of family, getting your kids to their activities. The list really goes on. As women, we are experiencing some form of stress throughout our daily lives, and that recovery system doesn't work as efficiently as it should as we get older. And we are left feeling quite high strung and overwhelmed. So these are common stress symptoms. Now, as we've learned, a lot of people experience stress in different ways, but these are some of the most common symptoms that people will experience. So feeling tired, exhausted, anxious, having difficulty with sleep, whether it's insomnia or just having it interrupted often, getting sick frequently, experiencing weight gain, having cravings for certain foods, noticing your PMS or menopause symptoms heightened even more, having that muscle tension because you're feeling quite tense, an upset stomach, even things like clenching your jaw or teeth grinding, which most often happens at night. These are all signs that your body is telling you that there's something deeper that you need to address. So how do we manage stress? I would love to know what tools you put into action in order to help relieve stress. Is it exercise? Is it spending time with people you care about? Is it meditation or yoga, something very calming? Journaling? Perhaps it's a specific hobby or something else that's not even on this list. Let's take a look. Some people have said sauna, music, some of the listed above, mental health walks, prayer. These are such wonderful ways of supporting our body, supporting our nervous system, choir singing. I love all of these. These are such wonderful ways of supporting yourself. Thank you so much for sharing those too. So stress management looks different for each individual, but the biggest key is taking some time for yourself. So taking a break, making time for the things that you love to do. So all of those things that you've just listed off for me, taking time for hobbies, taking time for body movement, practicing gratitude. There's so much science behind even just the act of practicing gratitude. Journaling, writing a letter, or sending a text to a friend, thinking of even just 3 simple things that you're thankful for each day. And there's also a lot of science behind practicing deep breathing techniques, even if it's box breathing. So that's 4 seconds of breathing in, pause for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, pause before you repeat that process. Now, there are also a lot of nutritional and herbal supports. So these are vital for helping our body appropriately respond to as well as combat stress. So vitamin C and vitamin B vitamins all get depleted under periods of stress. And if you're in a state of chronic stress, then those are likely even more depleted. So they need to be replenished quite frequently, also because they're water-soluble vitamins. There's also herbals like adaptogens, which include the well-known ashwagandha, one of my personal favorites to use and recommend, and also others like schizandra and rhodiola, and they are literally helping your body adapt to the stress and helping to dampen that stress response. Now, a great support is something like Adrenasmart. So this is a wonderful blend of 4 top adaptogenic herbs that help to support your body's response to stress and help it to come back into balance. It's supporting mental focus, mental stamina, as well as physical stamina, helping with that cognitive function, relieving symptoms of mental fatigue, and it also helps to relieve the symptoms of stress. So if you think about that list of signs of stress, common things that we experience. So it's a great supplement to use if you are experiencing any level of stress, whether it's minor or more chronic. And it's simply 2 capsules with breakfast and 2 with dinner. Now, after we've thought stress response, we also have to consider our thyroid, and those two are very closely linked together. So we have to really look at our adrenals and our stress response, as well as how our thyroid is functioning, as these first steps in finding overall hormonal balance for our body. So let's look at thyroid health and the function of this very delicate gland that, as I've said, is very much intertwined with the stress response. So essentially, we need to have a healthy thyroid to feel good. As I mentioned earlier, the thyroid is a really sweet butterfly shaped gland. It's wrapped right around the front of our neck, around our windpipe or trachea, and it's responsible for producing and supporting hormones that are vital for bodily functions. So this means energy production, our metabolism, our body temperature, and our heart rate. So you can understand why, because it has control over so many important things, when it's not functioning properly, it impacts all of those areas. And the thyroid can be impacted by a lot of different factors, both internal and external from the body. And believe it or not, hypothyroidism is considered a global health problem. So there's an estimated 5% of the general population that are dealing with thyroid concerns like this. 1 in every 300 people in the US is affected by some thyroid issue, and women are 5 to 10 times more likely to experience a thyroid concern than men. Uh, and thyroiditis or Hashimoto's thyroiditis is one of those underlying causes that can often sneak under the radar and be difficult for some people to get diagnosed. But it is one of the most common forms of hypothyroidism. Because this is our main metabolism hormone, the thyroid is communicating with cells throughout our entire body. It's determining growth and speed at which our natural body processes are occurring. So as a result, when levels get too low, we can experience things like weight gain, brittle hair and nails, fatigue or sensitivity to cold, muscle weakness or stiffness, constipation, even starting to have brain issues like forgetfulness and confusion. Some people experience a really hoarse voice, again, because of where the thyroid is located. They can see changes in their periods and cycle. And some people have changes to their face. There's a characteristic kind of puffy face that some people experience. So these are just, again, cues telling you that something else is going on in your body. This slide has a lot of information on it. It's really just to show how things can get imbalanced between our adrenals and our thyroid. So when we're in that chronic state of stress, our adrenals are in overdrive. They're working super hard for extended periods of time, flooding our body with cortisol until our adrenals literally don't have anything more. They can't keep up with that demand for more and more of the stress hormone. It leaves us in a state of chronic adrenal fatigue. And this eventually plummets our stress hormones and then can have a negative impact on the thyroid. The brain also has a role in helping to regulate our thyroid hormones because a lot of those cues start here and then they work their way down to other glands in the body. So once there's high stress hormones present, hormone production slows down. You can see from the slide all of the symptoms that you can potentially experience between your adrenals and your thyroid. So it's no wonder that women in particular get frustrated when they're not feeling well and they can't really figure out why. There are a lot of really vague symptoms sometimes that can overlap with different conditions. It can be really hard to determine what's going on with yourself. What are some ways that we can support our thyroid really practically, though? Iodine is one of them. So it's a really key mineral for thyroid health and for optimal thyroid functioning, which are why a lot of foods are fortified with iodine, even like certain forms of salt. We do have to be mindful of how much we are providing ourselves with something like iodine, because there are foods in it, and high levels of iodine can have a negative effect on certain hypothyroid conditions. So there is a little bit of a balance, and that's again why you have to really connect with your healthcare practitioner and have those conversations and keep that dialogue going. Vitamin D is another one. Often people who have low thyroid function also have low vitamin D levels. And there's some studies that really highlight that. So this is an area where we certainly can support quite easily with supplementation. And there are a lot of statistics out there showing just how deficient Canadians are with vitamin D in particular. And selenium. So this is another really key mineral for thyroid function. It also can be helpful for optimal thyroid function and production of thyroid hormones. And it's so simple to get. We can certainly consume it in a supplement like the one I'm going to talk about. You can also consume Brazil nuts if you're not allergic to them. Even just eating a few of those per day gives yourself the adequate amount of selenium that you need for thyroid support. But it goes beyond just nutrition. We need that lifestyle support, of course, right? So sleep is a big one. Ensuring quality sleep. There is definitely association between our sleep quality and optimizing our thyroid function. You can use apps on your smartphones to track a lot of symptoms. This is a great way to track things regardless of what type of health concern you may have. I use one for period tracking, and I've used it for more than a decade, and it's so helpful for keeping tabs on any little changes that you might be experiencing. And exercise. So this is something you have to obviously manage because people who are hypothyroid tend to feel quite fatigued, or that fatigue level might differ. So you have to really balance that out and determine what is best for you. But looking at subclinical hypothyroidism, women who biked or used the treadmill for 60 minutes, 3 times per week for 16 weeks, had an improvement in their quality of life, emotional, mental, and physical health that were related to thyroid concern. Supporting weight management is also another part that goes hand in hand with looking at some of the foods that you can add into your diet to help, as well as just moving your body, even in a really gentle way, on a regular basis. And there are some herbals that are of great support as well. So ashwagandha, again, because it is a powerhouse adaptogen and stress is so closely connected to thyroid dysfunction, we need to really manage our stress response so that it's not causing problems for the thyroid. And there are a lot of wonderful research studies that have been done to show reduction in stress levels and how that improves thyroid levels over the span of 2 months. So ThyroSmart combines that adaptogenic support of herbs like ashwagandha plus key vitamins and some really essential minerals. There's iodine and selenium in this formula, and that they're added to this formula because they nourish and support the function of the thyroid and production of those thyroid supporting hormones. And this is really simple. It's just 2 capsules with breakfast. Now, moving on, we're going to start looking at our cycling hormones, and we have to look at 2 main organs. The liver, because it's where a lot of hormones are converted and where a lot of detoxification happens, and of course our ovaries, because this is where those sex hormones are primarily being produced. Now, our hormones naturally go through a lot of fluctuations in life, as you can see from this graph. There are fluctuations in hormones in our teen years. These are quite significant, but it's just that normal first stage of hormonal change. So our body's just trying to figure out where that even line is going to be. Then during our cycling or reproductive years, everything seems to, or hopefully seems to go quite regularly. Estrogen is stable, progesterone is cycling as it should. It should be predictable. You get your period when you should get your period. And then we start to transition to perimenopause. Things start to become a bit more inconsistent. We see a lot more highs and lows. And it's not just the decrease in our hormones at this point, but an actual change or that shift that's happening in our hormones. And that can be the biggest challenge before our hormones drop off from menopause onwards. Now, in those menstruating years, it's our body's job to cycle those hormones in that very regular manner so that we can feel good, we can have energy, regular moods, and sleep well. Our body goes through 3 different phases every month. Our luteal phase, preparing our uterus for fertilization. If that happens and you're pregnant, then if it doesn't, then your whole cycle will start over again. When you think about this process, it's no wonder that so many women experience difficulties with regular cycles, especially PMS symptoms, irregular cycles, mood issues, or poor sleep, because estrogen and progesterone play such a big role in the health and rhythm of our cycles. From the start of menstruation, that first day of bleeding on day 1, through all the way through to the end of menopause when you no longer have your period at all. And estrogen fluctuations that we experience that go outside of what should be normal are often what cause a lot of those hormonal issues. And when we start to see period problems crop up, this is a good indicator of some of that hormonal health. Now, the liver, as I mentioned, plays a really big role in estrogen metabolism, hormone metabolism in general, but also estrogen metabolism. It's breaking it down, removing excess estrogen from our body when we don't need it. But if our liver is already overloaded with other things like a lot of toxins and chemicals that we just naturally get exposed to, then the function of it can slow down, and this can cause some of those imbalances in our hormones, can leave us really not feeling good. And for any of you who have some of those hormone imbalances, you can speak to that, I'm sure. Now, what does this number represent? 168. It's the number of individual chemical ingredients that we are exposed to, particularly women who often put a lot more onto our bodies in terms of makeup, skincare, etc. But this is the number of ingredients that we might be exposed to from even just 12 personal care products each day. So that includes shampoo and conditioner, plus all that skincare, plus makeup. Now, if your routine's a little bit different than that, good for you. I'm certainly kind of somewhere in the middle, but that's a lot of chemicals for our body to have to process. And our liver has to process so many other day-to-day chemicals, pollution from cars, pesticides that we are getting exposed to, different types of heavy metals, parabens. The list really goes on and on and on. So our body's constantly at work doing a really hard job, and our liver is no exception of that. So what can we do to help support liver detoxification in a really gentle and natural way? We can limit things that are going to bombard our liver, like caffeine, alcohol, overly charred meats, choosing clean beauty products. So trying to decipher labels, and certainly places like Healthy Planet have really knowledgeable staff that can help you to understand what the ingredients are in either a product that you're going to put on your body or food that you're going to put into your body. Choose organic foods when you can. Now, that's not necessarily accessible for everyone, but it can certainly help to decrease a little bit of that load on your liver. We want to make sure that we are having bowel movements regularly so that ensure our bowel is functioning properly. Constipation can lead to reabsorption of the things that our body's trying to get rid of. So you want to keep things moving through. And support the liver detoxification process with some liver supportive nutrients. Now, before we get into some of those nutrients, let's talk PMS because this is a major issue with a lot of menstruators, can really impact people's quality of life. It was highlighted in a nationwide survey on productivity and absenteeism in the workplace due to PMS symptoms. 34,000 women were surveyed, which is a really good survey number. And 14% of women reported being absent during their menstrual cycle from work, 3.4 being absent every menstrual cycle. And the average number of days missed due to PMS symptoms was almost 1.5 days per year, which is pretty significant. It also can decrease productivity for those who attended work but were experiencing those symptoms. 81% reported being present at work during their period, and they had a decrease in productivity per year because of the symptoms they were experiencing. As a concern, it's thought to impact up to 20% of menstruating people and 5 to 8% of those experiencing moderate to severe symptoms. So we can see that this is a very big problem for people who are still having their period. So what are some of those symptoms? Almost 90% of women report some type of either physical or psychological symptoms premenstrually. So it can be feeling more irritable and a bit overwhelmed. You can experience either cramping before your period or during, headaches and muscle aches, bloating and actual weight gain, a low mood, or wanting to even just completely withdraw entirely. And breast tenderness is something that's especially common for women. So this is just a handful of some of the symptoms. There's certainly a lot more than that. I'm sure each person here could probably identify with a number of these symptoms. Now, for those who are comfortable sharing, what are your periods like? Do you get PMS? Do you experience hormonal related acne? Do you have heavy periods? Do you get light periods? Are they regular? Lucky you if they are. Are they painful? Do you feel moody? Or do you just get irregularities? I'm seeing a lot of different answers. So a lot of people with PMS, people who are having breakouts and feel moody. Oh, unfortunately, some who are experiencing everything. We also have somebody who has PCOS, so they're not actually getting a period regularly. So there's a whole lot of different ways in which we are impacted by this. And it's not fun. I wish that it didn't have to be that experience for everyone. And certainly education is a good starting point, learning what some of the tools are. But first you have to know your body well. So start by tracking your cycle. For those of you who are having a cycle, note symptoms in a journal, or like I shared, I use an app. It's not one of the new fancier apps. I've had this app for probably 14, 15 years. But it is amazing to be able to see year after year, month after month, what some of those symptoms and what the patterns are for your period. This is helpful just in your own hormonal health journey. Certainly if you're trying to conceive or trying to get your period back after being on medication or after having a child, these are all really helpful tools for you. You can track missed days from work or school as well due to PMS, and those are great things, tools that you can have, evidence that you can share with your healthcare practitioner. You can also track the need for pain medication. I certainly get really bad cramps. I have to take over-the-counter medication, unless it's turmeric, like really good turmeric, that usually helps. But these are just things that can really help you to know your body and to see those trends that are happening, and then hopefully be able to find ways to balance things out and not experience those anymore. Now, what can you do from a lifestyle perspective? So we can't necessarily stop all of these symptoms from occurring, but some things that can be helpful, yoga and aerobic exercise for PMS. So looking at some studies where there were menstruators who did these activities, there was a significant reduction in pain intensity in PMS symptoms. And especially with yoga having more significant reduction compared to aerobic exercise. Some people have chosen swimming. So this activity can benefit both the physical and psychological PMS symptoms, particularly compared to people who did not swim. And so it doesn't matter what type of exercise you're choosing, find what's comfortable for you, what feels good for your body, especially during that time of the month. Just pick something and try to make it into a habit. Uh, this thinking is really backed by a study that showed, regardless of the form of exercise, there remains a positive impact on improving our psychological symptoms that are associated with PMS simply by starting to move our body. We usually feel a little bit better after we move our body a bit if we've not been moving for a while. Another habit, obviously, smoking. Smoking's not great for a number of reasons, but it also has been shown to put women at an increased risk for PMS. It can also be a risk factor for a lot of other women's health issues that are on a much bigger scale. Alcohol consumption can impact PMS, and a study reported that it can actually worsen PMS symptoms. So try not to indulge too much, particularly right before your period is going to start. Aromatherapy is shown to benefit PMS and reduce the severity of physical symptoms. And acupuncture and acupressure both have been shown to reduce those psychological and physical PMS symptoms. So hopefully some of these are new for some of you to try if you are still experiencing some of those issues and you're looking for a new tool. Now, nutrients that can support healthy hormones. There certainly are many. I'm focusing here on cruciferous vegetables because they help to optimize estrogen metabolism. So the cruciferous family is right there in the middle. We've got broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, all of those wonderful vegetables that we either love or hate and can be a little bit stinky, but are so delicious. They contain compounds like sulforaphane and indole 3 carbinol, or I3C. And I3C actually converts into another compound called DIM within the body. And these have benefits for optimizing estrogen breakdown and converting it into the preferred forms that either have protective health benefits or that can then be excreted from the body. Plus antioxidants. Our body's going through a lot all the time, but it's certainly going through even more during our cycle. And so we need antioxidants like turmeric and green tea that can help support healthy estrogen metabolism because they're aiding the detoxification processes by the liver. So EstroSmart is a really wonderful herbal approach to estrogen balancing. It's combining ingredients that support estrogen metabolism by the liver. So it includes I3C, DIM, and sulforaphane, some of those key nutrients that I just talked about, along with some antioxidants like turmeric and green tea. So this is for anybody who's experiencing hormonal imbalances and anybody who's looking for extra liver detoxification support. It's really helping to balance out that estrogen progesterone level to where we want it to be at, as well as supporting the liver detoxification pathway. And because it's managing those levels of estrogen and progesterone, it can help to reduce the duration and severity of breast pain, which is usually cyclical, and we notice it during our or just before our periods. So this is 2 to 4 capsules daily with food, really dependent on the individual, what is going to work best for them. Also, some people are a bit more sensitive to some herbal products and they need to start a little bit slower. Now, what does this number represent? 35. It's not just perhaps the age of some of you folks that are joining me on this presentation. Let's see if anybody's guessed it. We've got a few questions. I will get to those at the end. So this number 35 represents the earlier side of when perimenopause can start. So it can actually start as early as 35. And this is not something that I knew when I was 35 years old. I wish I had, not that I was at the perimenopause phase then, but it would have been really helpful to know to be able to then look out for signs of perimenopause. So perimenopause is that period of time before you actually hit menopause. It can be 10 to 15 years before you actually go into menopause. We start to see the ovaries gradually decrease in the production of estrogen, and then we see that accompanying drop in progesterone. It usually starts for women sometime in their 40s, but it can happen earlier. And I know of people that it's happened earlier in life. In that last 1 to 2 years of perimenopause, the estrogen drop actually speeds up. So we see a decline even faster. And this is when a lot of women really start to experience those menopause symptoms. So looking at this list, for those of you who may be in that age range, have you experienced 3 or more of these symptoms? If so, you could be in perimenopause. Now, all of that to say, still have those conversations with your healthcare practitioners, but this is a good point, and it was the first time I saw this list altogether, it definitely made me think. I'm 44 and I'm certainly in that age range of being in that perimenopausal state, and I'm starting to notice some changes. So this was a really helpful list for me. So whether it's a change in your flow, heavier or longer, or perhaps even shorter, uh, new, swollen, or lumpy breasts. This is certainly something that I feel very strongly about as a breast cancer survivor. You need to have your breast checked regularly and do self checks. Mid sleep waking, increase in menstrual cramps, onset of night sweats, especially if it's right before you're about to start your period. Migraine headaches, any changes to that, also changes to your PMS, and weight changes that are not in any way related to either exercise changes or eating exercises. Thank you for the compliment. If you saw me in person, you'd see all my gray hair. So this leads us to menopause. So some really interesting stats that I just have to share because they are so mind-boggling. Now, menopause is something that more and more women are at an age that they're reaching, that by 2025, more than 1 billion women in the world will be in perimenopause. So at this point in time, based on what our world population is, that's 1/7 of the population of the world will be in some peri or menopausal or postmenopausal state. In Canada, that number will be more than 5 million. So there's a lot of people who are going through this phase of life. This is not something we can avoid. This is a natural process in life. It's something that can be quite challenging for some people. We think about what the average Canadian woman is living into her 80s. She'll spend more than a third of her life in a menopausal state. Now, I'm not sharing that to scare anyone. It's really more just to provide that insight so that we can then consider how we have to take care of ourselves because of these changes that are happening and the extra support that our body needs during this time. So what are some of the common symptoms of perimenopause and the menopausal transition? Some of them are similar to what I shared on a previous slide. It can be changes to the cycle, missed periods. Of course, once we are in menopause, we lose our period. You might notice changes in your libido, your desire or lack of desire to have sex. Difficulties with sleep is often a really big one that can happen perimenopausally as well as especially in menopause. Hot flashes and night sweats, feeling overwhelmed or noticing mood changes, like you just don't understand why you're so close to snapping all of the time. Forgetfulness or brain fog, you're just constantly trying to find the words and you just can never remember the thing that's right on the tip of your tongue. Feeling like your metabolism is shifting significantly. Some women are noticing vaginal dryness or even experiencing things like incontinence or more frequent UTIs. These are all big indicators of some of that shift. Now, this question I think is pretty simple for all of us to know, especially if there are a lot of people who are menstruators on this presentation today. So menopause is defined as going how long without a period. Let's see how many people know this. Yep, everybody's got it. So B, 12 months. So 1 full year without a cycle is considered to be, you are considered to be in menopause. So what are some lifestyle adjustments that we can consider for both that perimenopausal stage as well as if you're right in the throes of menopause itself? This plays a huge role in symptom severity. So managing our lifestyle can really, really significantly improve how we experience this stage of life. If we reduce or eliminate caffeine and alcohol intake, this can really lessen hot flash severity. And I can tell you from not my own personal experience, because I'm not quite there yet, but from firsthand information from a client of mine who stopped drinking alcohol, particularly wine, and had a massive reduction in their hot flashes. Adding in good quality organic soy isoflavones to your diet can help to benefit symptoms. Research shows even 2 servings per day can help with that. So this is really debunking a lot of those soy myths, and you can certainly find a lot of great information online if you look on PubMed or Google Scholar for research studies that really support all of this evidence. But the key is make sure it's organic soy. Uh, Now, healthy fiber and healthy fats. So flaxseed is a great example. This can also help and can be used on a daily basis because of all of those wonderful phytoestrogens that are contained in things like flaxseed. Acupuncture can also be used to benefit us in the menopause and perimenopause stage. So not just if you're experiencing PMS. It can help with insomnia and mood that are all related to menopause. And this is great for somebody who's not necessarily interested in using a hormonal approach to support some of those menopausal symptoms for people that want to go strictly natural and not use HRT. These are a lot of ways that you can really support your body. And there are a lot of great herbals for menopausal and perimenopausal support with a lot of excellent research studies to back them up. So black cohosh, chaste tree berry, and sage leaf all help to relieve symptoms of menopause like hot flashes. So there's lots of research behind these users. The study participants use these herbs for 8 weeks in most of the studies, and they found a massive reduction in their symptoms of night sweats and hot flashes by using these herbals specifically. Antioxidant support is also really important during this time. Your body is going through a lot of stress as your hormones are shifting. There's some research that I looked at that really highlighted this in terms of that free radical antioxidant conversation and just how overloaded our body is as our estrogen levels are shifting. So adding more antioxidants into your life through the food that you're consuming, as well as in a supplement form, can really help to stay on top of some of those symptoms and just really aid your body in giving that little extra support. Now, this product, MenoSmart Plus, if you haven't heard of it before and you are in perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause with still being symptomatic, this is the product for you. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Smart Solutions educator. Once I get to the point where I am experiencing hot flashes and night sweats, I will be using this product for myself. I have a number of colleagues who can attest to how this has really changed their lives and given them their lives back after using this product. So it's combining a formula of herbs and antioxidants, including those 3 herbs that I mentioned from the previous slide, the black cohosh, the sage leaf, and the chaste tree berry, to help relieve and reduce symptoms associated with menopause. The biggest ones that cause problems being those hot flashes and those night sweats. So it's an evidence-backed group of botanicals that's really designed to support menopause and normalize hormones, easing that transition through our estrogen decline. There's also some added benefits of it helping to relieve muscle and joint pain that's associated with rheumatic conditions. So often we are experiencing these things also as we are getting a little bit older. Can ease nervous tension, and because of the chaste tree berry, it can help to stabilize those menstrual cycle irregularities for somebody who's still in that perimenopause stage and hasn't stopped having a period. So it's really beneficial for anybody who's within that perimenopause, menopause, or even postmenopausal stage if you're still unfortunately experiencing symptoms. And you take 2 for breakfast and 2 at bedtime. So really, really simple. Now, lastly, I just want to circle back before we end to nutrition. This plays a really important role in our diet. So not everyone needs to be on the same diet. There are a lot of ways to eat, and we can really balance out nutrients to promote improvements in our health. The Mediterranean diet is certainly one of the best ways of doing that because it's high in lean quality protein, healthy fats, and lots of fiber from fruits and vegetables. This has been shown to really help reduce PMS symptoms and ease some of those menopausal symptoms. So we really have to consider how we're putting things on our plate, really dividing it up in a way so that we're getting the appropriate amounts of each of these food groups. So this is just to highlight that. This is a more recent image from Health Canada, the new eating guidelines. Exercise is another one. We've already talked about this a lot for each stage of life. Can make a world of difference in how we feel physically as well as mentally and emotionally. So looking at how you can move your body in some of these ranges of time per week. So trying to get at least 2 days of activity in and dividing up the exercise into chunks of these minutes. So if it's swimming, 75 to 150 minutes a week. If it's doing something like yoga, stretching, running, walking, aiming for 150 to 300 minutes. And those 4 pillars of hormone health. So we talked about nutrition and healthy diet, exercise, stress support, and then some stage-specific hormone support through supplementation. So where are you on your hormone journey? Which of these products would likely help you with some of the things that you may be experiencing? I hope this discussion has brought some clarity to where you are on your hormone journey and given you some additional tools to help navigate those ups and downs that we have that come along with the hormonal shifts that are happening all the time in our bodies.